Just follow the list, the day guard said, and don't improvise. That was the last thing Rick told me before he climbed into his car and drove off, taillights vanishing through the mist curling over Hawthorne Ridge's front gate. I stood there in the pale orange glow of the security booth, wondering what the hell I'd just signed up for. The job sounded simple enough. Midnight to 6 shift guarding the only entrance to a private community tucked deep in the pines outside Ashwood. Nice homes, gated access. Good pay for a guy with no degree and no prospects. All I had to do was keep a log, check IDs, and make sure the gate stayed shut. But inside the booth, taped beside the clock, was a laminated sheet titled Overnight Protocol, Hawthorne Ridge. 10 numbered rules in bold, all caps. Half of them made sense. The rest felt wrong. I read them twice, frowning. The first few were standard procedure. Lock up at 11, log entries, answer calls. But by Rule 4, things went sideways. If you hear knocking, do not look. Rule 6 talked about headlights approaching from the wrong direction. Rule 10 warned, at dawn, unlock the gate, but don't look beyond it. I actually laughed. Must have been an initiation prank. Maybe every new guy got the spooky rule list to see how long they'd last. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that the paper had been replaced recently. The edges weren't yellowed like the others. The ink smelled faintly new, chemical. The booth itself was cramped but clean. Single metal desk, 2 monitors for security feeds, a landline phone, a worn-out radio, and a binder full of resident names. A thermos of stale coffee sat beside a folded note that read, "Good luck tonight. Keep the gate closed. R." At 10:58, I stepped outside. The night air bit colder than it should have for October. The front gate stretched across the drive, black wrought iron, tall and solid, flanked by stone pillars carved with the community's logo, a hawk in flight over pine trees. Behind it, the road wound upward into dense forest. Streetlights flickered faintly through the fog. When the clock hit 11, I swung the gate shut and turned the lock. The sound echoed through the trees like something final. Then, headlights. A black sedan rolled up slow, engine whispering. The driver didn't open their window. I waved politely, ready to check their ID, but they just sat there. Behind the tinted glass, I could barely make out a pale blur that might have been a face. I gestured again, mouthing, "You good?" Nothing. A minute passed. Then the car eased backward into the darkness and turned off its lights. I waited. Nothing else moved. Rule number 1 replayed in my head. Lock the gate at 11 o'clock sharp. Do not reopen until 11:10. No exceptions. I exhaled a shaky laugh and went back inside. Weird timing. That was all. The first few hours dragged. A couple of late residents drove through, ID check, wave, done. The forest around the community was silent except for crickets and the occasional rustle of wind. I tried to distract myself scrolling through my phone, but the service bars were gone and the radio picked up only static. At 12:07 a.m., the intercom buzzed, a sharp metallic bzzzt that jolted me upright. The panel light glowed green. I reached for the button, then hesitated. Rule 3. Answer only if the red light is flashing. If it's green, let it ring. It's not for you. I let it buzz. It went on for 20 seconds before cutting out. Silence followed. I told myself it was a wiring issue, maybe interference, maybe Rick's idea of hazing. But when I glanced at the monitors, static briefly rolled over one of the camera feeds, the one aimed at the gate. Through the static, for half a second, I thought I saw movement on the other side. Something pale. Then the feed cleared. Nothing there. I tried the coffee. Bitter, cold. My reflection stared back at me from the window. Tired eyes, half-buttoned uniform, the red Hawthorne Ridge security patch crooked on my shoulder. That was when I heard the first knock. Soft. Precise. 3 taps against the glass behind me. I froze, looked down at the rule sheet. If you hear knocking on the window, do not look. Do not speak. The noise will stop if you stay still. I waited. The knock came again, this time slower, closer. My breath fogged the glass. Then silence. When I finally turned around, the window was empty, only my own reflection staring back, faint and distorted in the dim booth light. I sat there until my shift clock ticked past 12:30 and the night pressed in closer, heavier than before. Something about the dark outside the gate didn't feel like normal dark anymore, like it was watching back. The clock read 12:41 a.m. when I realized I'd stopped writing in the logbook. The pen hovered above the page, tip bleeding a dark blot of ink into the paper. I couldn't remember the last car that came through. Couldn't remember hearing one leave either. The forest around Hawthorne Ridge had gone utterly silent. No insects, no rustle of branches, just the faint electrical hum of the booth light and the rhythmic tick of the wall clock. I stared at the reflection in the glass again. For a moment, it looked like someone was standing behind me. When I turned, nothing. I told myself I was just tired. Graveyard shifts mess with your head, everyone says that. Then the intercom buzzed again, that same sharp metallic noise, but this time the red light was flashing. I swallowed, reached for the receiver, and pressed the button. "Security booth," I said, trying to sound professional. "Hawthorne Ridge. Go ahead." Static. Then a woman's voice, faint, tremulous, like she was whispering directly into the line. "Can you open the gate, please? They're not supposed to see me." My skin went cold. "Ma'am? Who is this? Do you—" The line crackled and her whisper shifted into a low hiss. Not words anymore, just sound. Then silence. The light turned green. I set the receiver down gently and glanced at the monitor feed for the gate. For half a heartbeat, I saw her, standing just beyond the bars. A white dress, hair draped forward like she was looking down at her feet, still as a statue. When the static cleared, she was gone. I stepped outside the booth, every instinct screaming not to. The air was heavy, fog coiling low to the ground like it was breathing. I shone my flashlight across the pavement, sweeping the road, the fence line, the trees beyond. Nothing. Then the beam caught something pale, movement along the outer fence to my right. A woman, walking the perimeter, her dress fluttering softly in the windless air. I froze. She didn't look toward me, didn't react to the light at all, just walked. Slow and deliberate, the way someone moves in a dream. I remembered Rule 5. A woman in white may walk the perimeter fence between 1 and 2 a.m. Do not call out to her, and whatever you do, don't open the gate. The second hand on the booth clock ticked past 1 o'clock exactly. I backed into the booth, locked the door, and killed the lights. The monitors flickered with faint static again, and when they cleared, the woman had vanished from all feeds. That's when the headlights appeared, on the wrong side of the fence. They crept through the fog from inside the community, bright white beams moving toward the gate, slow as if the car was idling in neutral. There was no engine sound, just the glare growing brighter and brighter until it washed out the cameras completely. Rule 6. If you see headlights approaching from inside the community, step away from the window and face the corner until they pass. It felt ridiculous, but I did it. I turned away, heart pounding, facing the peeling paint of the back wall like a kid in trouble. The booth filled with light, pure white through the windows, so bright it pressed against my eyelids. I counted seconds. 10, 20. The light dimmed. When I turned around, the road beyond the gate was empty again. No tire tracks, no sound, just fog swallowing everything. The clock said 1:26 a.m. I'd lost almost 10 minutes. The radio on the desk crackled to life. I hadn't touched it all night. The dial glowed faintly amber, the old analog needle twitching. A voice cut through the static, male, calm, distant. Tonight's forecast calls for a dense fog advisory in the Ashwood area. Stay indoors. Avoid bright lights. Do not... The broadcast warped into noise, a long, high whine that made my teeth ache. Then the voice came back, lower, almost human again. Evan, don't let her in. I yanked the cord out of the wall. The static cut off immediately, leaving a vacuum of silence. The phone rang. Once, twice, 3 times. I stared at it, remembering Rule 8. If the phone rings 3 times, someone will be standing at the gate. I stepped slowly to the window. There she was again, the woman in white. Hands pressed flat against the iron bars, head bowed. I didn't move, didn't breathe. She didn't either. The longer I stared, the less human she looked, like her edges were blurring, her dress merging with the fog. Then, as quickly as she'd appeared, she was gone. The gate stood open. The padlock still hung there, closed and intact, but the gate itself stood a few feet ajar, like something had just slipped through. I didn't open it. I swear I didn't. A cold gust swept through the booth, rustling the rule sheet pinned beside the clock. One corner lifted just enough to reveal something written beneath it, a faint pen mark I hadn't noticed before. Another line, another rule. If the gate opens on its own, don't try to close it. The booth felt smaller after that. The walls closer, the air thicker. I kept glancing at the gap in the gate even though I told myself not to. The fog pressed against the opening like it was waiting for permission to come through. I tried the radio again out of habit. Dead. Tried my phone. Still no service. The clock's ticking sounded too loud now, like it was keeping time for something else entirely. When the intercom buzzed again, I nearly jumped out of my chair. The red light was flashing this time. I lifted the receiver with a shaking hand. Security booth. No static, no delay. A man's voice, calm and close, answered. You're not supposed to be here, Evan. I froze. Who is this? You shouldn't have looked at her. The line went dead. The sound that followed came from outside. Soft footsteps in gravel, slow, deliberate. I turned off the light, crouched beneath the window, and peered out just enough to see the silhouette of someone walking along the road from inside the community. The same white dress, the same dragging gait. Only now, she was humming. I stayed low until the humming faded. My pulse thundered in my ears. Then the radio crackled to life again on its own. Missing persons alert for Evan Cole, 26 years old. My stomach turned. It was my name, my voice. The broadcast sounded like a recording, warped and distant, like someone had taped over an old emergency channel. Last seen at the front gate of Hawthorne Ridge. If spotted, do not approach. I unplugged the radio again. It kept playing. On the desk, the rule sheet rustled. I leaned in and realized a new line had appeared in pen beneath Rule 10, the ink still wet and glistening. Rule 11. If you hear your own voice, do not answer. I stared at it, heart hammering. My pen was right there next to it, cap off, though I didn't remember using it. The phone rang again. Once, twice, 3 times. I stared at it, refusing to move. The 4th ring never came. But then I heard it. The other phone. The one mounted outside the booth meant for residents. It was ringing too, muffled through the glass. I stepped closer to the window. There was someone standing next to it. Not the woman this time. A man in a security uniform, same patch, same jacket, same build. His head hung slightly to one side like it didn't sit right on his neck. He lifted his face just enough for me to see it. It was mine. I stumbled back, knocking the chair over. The outside me smiled. Wrong, too many teeth, skin stretched too tight, and pressed a hand to the glass. His fingers left streaks that smoked faintly, like the surface burned where he touched it. Then the outside phone stopped ringing. I grabbed the flashlight and turned it toward him, but the beam only hit fog. The figure was gone. The booth door creaked softly behind me. It was still locked. I checked twice, but it shifted anyway, as though something on the other side was breathing against it. Then, through the door, I heard my own voice whisper, "You can take a break now, Evan. I've got it from here." I backed away until my shoulders hit the far wall, eyes on the knob as it trembled once, twice, and went still. The light above the door flickered and died. In the reflection of the dark window, I could see myself, still, breathing fast, and just behind me, in that reflected glass, a pale shape standing in the corner where no one should have been. I turned, flashlight raised. Nothing. But when I looked back at the reflection, it was still there. Closer now. A whisper filled the booth, layered voices overlapping. "Don't let the gate close. Don't let it close. Don't let it." Then silence again. The only sound left was the slow, metallic groan of the gate moving on its own, inching wider into the fog. The fog had swallowed everything. The road, the trees, even the lamps that usually lined the entrance drive. Gone. When I opened the door, the air felt thick enough to touch. Cold, damp, almost alive. The gate now stood wide open, not creaking, not swinging, open, like it had been that way for years. I told myself I'd quit after this shift. No amount of money was worth this. But every time I reached for my keys or the radio, my hands didn't seem to listen. My body felt slow, disconnected, as if I were underwater. The monitors flickered. Camera 3, the one pointed down the internal road, came alive again. Through the static, a figure was walking toward the booth. The same uniform, the same stride, the same face. Me. Only older, paler. Eyes sunk deep, mouth slightly open like he was whispering something I couldn't hear. He stopped in front of the camera, looked directly into it, and raised his hand in a small wave. The booth light flickered once, then went out completely. The intercom buzzed immediately after, the green light flashing this time, the one I wasn't supposed to answer. I stared at it until the buzzing stopped. Then it started again, louder, longer, like it was angry I hadn't picked up. When it cut out the second time, the voice came from behind me instead. "You're late for your shift." I spun, flashlight shaking in my hand. My double stood in the doorway. His uniform was soaked, sleeves stained dark up to the elbows. His name tag still read E. Cole, but the letters seemed carved rather than printed. He smiled that same stretched, too wide smile. "It's your brick now." "I'm not," I started, but he raised a finger to his lips. "Shh, you'll wake them." Behind him, the fog pulsed faintly with light, like headlights, except these weren't white. They were red, moving slowly through the mist as if the night itself was breathing. The radio on the desk burst to life, the voice warped and distant again. "Shift change confirmed. Please lock the gate behind you." I backed away, heart hammering. My double stepped forward, the same movement I made in reverse, like we were mirrors again. "You can't leave," he said softly. "Not until you've seen it." "The hell are you talking about?" He pointed toward the open gate. The fog shimmered there, shapes moving within it, hundreds of faint silhouettes, cars idling with engines off, headlights flickering on and off like slow blinks. Every car had someone in it, every person staring toward the booth. I whispered, "What are they?" "Residents," he said. "Or they were." The intercom buzzed again, red light flashing now. The voice of the woman in white filtered through the static. "You can't close it, Evan. They'll never let you." When I looked back at my double, his eyes were black, reflecting nothing. "It's easier if you don't fight it," he said, stepping closer. "We all tried, at first." He reached out, fingers stretching farther than they should have, joints bending backward like softened wax. I swung the flashlight. It passed through him and through me. For a split second, I saw the inside of the booth from outside. The same chair, the same monitors, only older, dustier, covered in cobwebs. Then everything snapped back. The gate began to move, closing slowly, groaning like something ancient forced to wake. The radio hissed, "Don't let it close." My double turned sharply, panicked now, and bolted toward the fog. He disappeared into it like smoke. The woman's voice came again, closer, clearer. "They told you to guard it, but they never told you what you were guarding." I turned toward the open road, and for the first time, I saw what the fog had been hiding. The entire stretch beyond the gate wasn't a road anymore. It was a mirror. Slick black water reflecting the booth, the cars, the trees, but in the reflection, everything was wrong. The booth was empty, the cars were burning quietly, and something enormous moved beneath the surface. The voice whispered right beside my ear. "Now you understand. The gate isn't meant to keep them out." Lightning flashed somewhere in the fog, and for a heartbeat, I saw it. A vast skeletal shape in the reflection, pressing its face against the underside of the water like it wanted to surface. Then the light died, and the reflection went still. The clock above me clicked softly from 3 a.m. to 3:01. And from somewhere in the fog, the woman began to hum again. Dawn should have come by now. The clock said 5:37 a.m., but the sky hadn't lightened at all, only deepened, shifting from gray to a bruised blue-black. The fog no longer drifted, it stood, dense and unmoving, like a wall. Every rule I'd been given had already failed, except the last one. At dawn, before your shift ends, unlock the gate, but don't look beyond it. I thought maybe if I followed just that one, things might stop. Maybe I could end the night. I found the keys hanging from the wall hook, though I didn't remember putting them there. They were ice cold in my hand. When I stepped outside, the ground crunched under my boots. Not gravel, Not leaves. Something finer. I crouched down and realized it was ash. The road beyond the gate was covered in it. The trees, too. Everything past the iron bars looked burned, yet the air didn't smell of smoke. The gate stood half open, waiting. I reached for the padlock. The second I touched it, the fog reacted, rippled outward like water disturbed. I could hear whispers again, hundreds of them now, layered voices repeating the rules in perfect rhythm. Do not open after 11. Do not look. Do not answer. Do not leave your post. The voices weren't warning me anymore. They were pleading. I turned the key. The lock clicked open easily, falling into my hand like it had been waiting for that exact sound. The gate groaned, metal scraping against pavement as it swung wider. And I couldn't stop myself. I looked. At first I thought it was just more fog. Then the fog moved. Figures were standing along the road, dozens, maybe hundreds, frozen mid-step. Some wore pajamas, some business suits, some the same uniform I wore. Their eyes were open, staring straight ahead, their mouths slightly parted as if caught mid-breath. Every one of them faced the gate. The woman in white stood among them. Her face was clearer now and older than I'd thought, lined, weathered, kind. It's not a neighborhood, she said softly. It's a threshold. Behind her, the burned landscape stretched on forever. Roads looped into themselves, fences melted into the mist, and farther back, rising from the ash, were houses. Blackened shells of houses, each with faint orange light flickering inside, as if occupied by something pretending to live there. They build the same place over and over, the woman said, and they keep sending new guards. Who? I asked. The ones who never look away. Her voice wavered, echoing strangely, like two versions of her speaking at once, one near, one impossibly far. Then the phone inside the booth started ringing again, 4 times. The sound was sharper now, more mechanical, as if it came from everywhere, from the radios, from the fence, even from the hollow air between the trees. The woman looked past me toward the booth. That's them, she said. Your relief. I turned. Through the booth window, I saw a man standing at the desk, back turned, writing something in the logbook. Same jacket, same patch, same crooked name tag. When he looked up, I already knew what face I'd see. Mine. He smiled faintly as if we'd just passed each other on a shift change. Then he taped a new sheet of paper to the wall. I could read the top line from where I stood. Overnight Protocol, Hawthorne Ridge. Same rules, same typeface, except now there was an 11th printed rule, clean and neat like it had always been there. 11. Don't forget to lock the gate behind you. I felt something move behind me, a pressure, low and vast, like a tide pulling back. The air turned electric. Every figure in the road began to lift their heads, eyes opening wider, faces stretching into the same empty expression. The woman whispered, "You should go now." I don't know where to go. Neither did we. Then she stepped backward into the fog and vanished, leaving only the faint sound of her humming. The phone inside the booth stopped ringing. The clock ticked once, and somewhere behind me, a familiar voice said, "Shift change confirmed." I turned back toward the gate, and for the first time, saw daylight breaking through the fog. Except it wasn't the booth I was looking at anymore. It was me, standing inside it, watching someone else walk down the road. Keys in hand, uniform clean, fresh list taped beside the clock. They told me to guard the gate. They never said what was on the other side. Maybe some gates aren't meant to be kept shut. Maybe some of us were never guarding the outside at all. If you liked this story, do me a favor. Make sure your own door's locked tonight. Then hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's waiting next time. This has been Campfire Horror Stories, where the night is never really empty, and every story leaves something behind.